Internal Revenue Service IRS tax news. IRS cautions taxpayers about fake charities and scammers targeting immigrants. IRS Tax Tip 2021-109, July 28, 2021. The IRS continues to observe criminals using a variety of scams that target honest taxpayers. In some cases, these scams will trick taxpayers into doing something illegal or that ultimately causes them financial harm. These scammers may cause otherwise honest people to do things they don't realize are illegal or prey on their goodwill to steal their money. So note that obviously as more money is going out from the government, from the IRS in the form of stimulus payments, and as they increase refundable portions of credits and whatnot, there's going to be an increased amount of scamming that's going to be taking place. And you got to be more vigilant as long as that's going to be the case for the scams that could be happening. So here are a couple of this year's Dirty Dozen scams. So the Dirty Dozen scams, if you want to see all of them, there's a link to them here. So we got the fake charities. Taxpayers should be on the lookout for scammers who set up fake organizations to take advantage of the public's generosity. Scammers take advantage of charities and disasters. So whenever there's a disaster, of course, they could try to set up a fake charity and try to pick up money from the fake charity. Now, note that if you ever feel pressure that someone's trying to pressure you to give money into the charity, which is kind of a standard tactic in any case, but if it's public pressure or something like that, then what you really want to do generally is say, give me your information and I'll think about giving money to a charity after I've researched whether or not it's worthwhile to do. And so anytime you feel pressure in a financial situation, usually I would say, nah, I'll do it later. I'll check it out. Give me your information. I'll take a look at it. So scams requesting donations for disaster relief efforts are especially common over the phone. Taxpayers should always check out a charity before they donate. They should not feel pressured to give immediately. And so the phone clearly is going to be a kind of a pressure tactic on it generally. If you ever feel uncomfortable about whether or not it's a legitimate charity or not, I would get their information and then hang up on them, which is difficult if you're talking to like a good scammer because they'll try not to allow you to hang up on them and just say thank you and then hang up is generally what I would think the best strategy would be. And then obviously you can give to them on their website or something like that. The only reason not to do that I can ever kind of think of is that I would like to give credit to the individual if they are an honest person and I do decide to give to the charity and they make their money in some commission way on how much they collect from the charity. I'd like them to get that commission. So if you do think it's legitimate, you might ask, give me your name and I'll try to refer you to them that, you talk to me or something like that. But in any other case, I think that's the only reason to care, that you should be able to, if they're a legitimate charity, you should be able to look them up on the internet and give them money in fairly easy way if they're trying to collect money. So in any case, taxpayers who give money or goods to charity may be able to claim a deduction on their federal tax return by reducing the amount of their taxable income. However, to receive a deduction, taxpayers must donate to a qualified charity. So to check status of a charity, they can use the IRS tax exempt organization search tool. So obviously when you're giving money to charities, notice when you give money to people, it probably shouldn't be your main goal to write it off for charity unless it's like a large financial kind of decision. So, I mean, if you wanted to give money to somebody that clearly needs money and you feel like that, they have an honest, a good purpose for it and you can, then, you're not going to get a deduction for it, but it is what it is. But if part of the selling point is that you get a deduction for it and they're saying that they're a qualified charity when they're not, then they're lying in one case, and you're not going to get the deduction. So you clearly don't want to give it to that charity. So to me, to be able to check as to whether a qualified charity is a qualified charity is a check also to see whether or not they are actually an honest charity or not, as well as being able to get the deduction if the deduction is going to be something that you can take. Also note that normally if you give a larger amount to charity, the deduction for charitable deductions are itemized deductions. So you don't get them unless you're itemizing and not taking the standard deduction. Now, I think they had last year, I think up to like 300 that you could take above the line without itemizing, but it's fairly limited, right? That's a fairly small amount compared to the deductions if you were to itemize. So just realize that the tax incentive, if you don't itemize, may not be as great as well. But if someone is claiming to be a qualified charity and they're using that as their sales tactic and they're not, then obviously they're lying, and then I wouldn't give money to them. And if you want to choose a charity to give money to, then seeing whether or not they actually qualify as a charity is at least one check to see whether or not they're legitimate. It's not the only check, because you probably want to look more into how efficiently they spend their money, how much money goes to what they're actually supposed to be giving the charity for, and how much goes to like management of the charity or something like that in salaries and whatnot. But in any case, it's also important for taxpayers to remember that they can't deduct gifts to individuals or to political organizations and candidates. Here are some tips to help taxpayers avoid fake charity scams. Individuals should never let any caller pressure them. A legitimate charity will be happy to get a donation at any time, so there's no rush. Donors are encouraged to take time to do their own research. So obviously, anytime a charity, anything that's basically rushing you, and it's a financial kind of thing, then your best thing usually is just simply to walk away from it. So confirm the charity is real. Potential donors should ask the fundraiser for the charity's exact name, website, and mailing address. Notice if they don't have a website these days, then that's pretty ridiculous. I mean, you could get one for free, so they should at least have a website that you can check out on your own. And if you wanted to pay them at a later time through the website, you would think they would have a fairly easy process to do so. So you would think you'd have more than enough time to do your own research and give to the charity if you want to give to them. So they can confirm it later. Some honest telemarketers use names that should sound like well-known charities to confuse people. So if they use a charity, you're like, that sounds kind of real, but it doesn't sound completely real. Again, you can kind of check that by looking at their website at least, right? And if they don't have, they'd have to set up a fake website with a similar kind of name, which that would probably throw you off, right? If someone gave you a name that was similar to the Red Cross, but it wasn't really the Red Cross, and then you looked it up and it was like the Red Chris or something like that, then, you'd probably see their website doesn't look quite right. So be careful about how a donation is made. Taxpayers shouldn't work with charities that ask for donations by giving numbers from a gift card or by wiring money. So notice if they're trying to get your money from something like a charity or any online scam, there's various online scams where they could try to get money over the phone. And then at the end of the whole process, they say, and we'd like you to give us the money with a gift card. Even if their whole story was kind of convincing, I was like, man, like I saw one where they're saying there's someone who's in jail in Mexico or something, and you got to give them money now to get bail. It's like, wow, that would be terrible. But then it's like, then they say, we'd like you to give us the money with a gift card. It's like, well, why would you, if someone asked for the money with a gift card? So, obviously the only reason you'd want money from a gift card is so that you wouldn't track where the money came from. And that's why they can't track it back. So even if something sounds really legitimate and then they want money from a gift card, that should be an indication that's something's not right there. So that's a scam. It's safest to pay the credit card or check. And clearly on your end, if they're telling you you're going to get a deduction from it, then you want to track it. You don't want it to be untrackable. You want to track it because you want to verify to the IRS that you took the deduction and you actually paid the money. Therefore, you want to pay it with a check or a credit card. You don't want to hide the transaction with cash or with a gift card, right? You want it to be as transparent as possible. For more information about fake charities, you can see the Federal Trade Commission website. There's a link to that here. We have the immigrant fraud. IRS impersonators and other scammers often use threats and intimidation to target groups with limited English proficiency. And so the IRS phone impersonator scam remains a common scam. This is where a taxpayer receives a phone call threatening jail time, deportation, or revocation of a driver's license from someone claiming to be with the IRS. That seems just like a terrible situation. But in any case, the IRS doesn't threaten people like that. They're a bureaucracy, obviously, and they do a very long process generally before they come after you usually. So again, any kind of pressure type of situation, first thought might be scam. Seems kind of scammy. Recent immigrants often are the most vulnerable. People need to ignore these threats and not encourage the scammers. A taxpayer's first contact with the IRS will usually be through mail, not over the phone. So obviously, the IRS, when they contact, usually they do it, the old-fashioned way, long, slow correspondence through mail, which they'll follow up on every 30 or 60 days. So usually, if the IRS is going to take action, you are well aware that they're going to take action because you've been receiving letters every 30 to 60 days for some time, and before they move on to whatever the next step will be in the process. But in any case, legitimate IRS employees will not threaten to revoke licenses or have a person deported. These are scare tactics. New multilingual resources available. The IRS has added new features to help those who are more comfortable in a language other than English. The Schedule LEP, there's a link to that here, allows a taxpayer to select in which language they wish to communicate. Once they complete and submit the schedule, they will receive future communications in that selected language preference. The IRS is providing tax information, forms, and publications in many languages other than English. IRS Publication 17, Your Federal Income Tax, there's a link to that here, is now available in Spanish, Chinese, Simplified and Traditional, Vietnamese, Korean, and Russian. So there's a link to those items here. There'll be a link to this in the description.